Welcome to the Main Dish with MD. I'm your host, Marlon Davis. And if this is your first show, the goal of the show is to inspire, connect, and entertain. But before we get started, go ahead and click that subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of your screen right down there. Yes. Today we want to know, are you taking the vaccine? We've all seen the memes going around. You know, if you drank from a water hose back in the day, you don't have to worry about what's in the coronavirus vaccine. Or if you've had trash can punch or jungle juice from an unknown kitchen, you don't have to be worried or concerned what's in that coronavirus vaccine. So today we have two trusted members of the medical field to talk about your fears and your concerns and answer some questions regarding the vaccine. We'd like to welcome back Dr. Desiree Bobino Thomas, who is a neurologist at the Kelsey-Seybold Clinic in Houston, Texas. Welcome back, Desiree.
Hello, everybody.
How are we doing today?
Good.
Next, we'd like to welcome Dr. Chad Wilson, who's a trauma medical director at the Ben Taub Hospital in Houston, Texas. Welcome, Chad.
Thanks, Marlon, for having me.
Hey, how we doing today?
I'm doing pretty good, man. It's good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too, man. I see you actually in the hospital, in the office.
That's right. I'm here, rounding on a few people in the ICU, some of which have COVID.
Not a fun time, but again, like I said earlier, we definitely appreciate you. Hey guys, but before we get started, before we break in all to the vaccine, we do have to do a segment called WTD, What the Dish. All right, guys, once you know these ingredients, please go ahead and give a shout out to what the dish is. Let's go ahead and get started. 1 cup of marinara, 2 ounces of Canadian bacon slices, 1 ounce of pepperoni slices, 1/2 cup of green bell peppers, 1 cup of red onions, 1 can of sliced black olives, 6 ounces of mozzarella cheese. Go ahead and shred that. 1/4 cup of torn basil, and
Pizza.
1 pound. Huh?
Pizza.
What? I'm not even finished. Be trying to. Don't be trying to. I haven't said the last thing.
Okay.
1 pound of fresh dough, and go.
Okay, now I'm gonna let Chad win.
I think it's some sort of pizza, maybe.
Pizza. Yes, it is. Right. Oh, and the reason
I was wondering where the pineapple was popping in.
Well, you know what? No, this.
A Hawaiian style?
No, not a wine style, brother.
Right.
Not a wine style. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk about this vaccine. Let's get right to it. People want to get back to normal, and this vaccine is supposed to get us back to normal. People want to hug their parents, hug their grandparents, and this vaccine is supposed to get us back to that. People are dying. Literally, people are dying, and you probably know a couple of them. This vaccine is supposed to help us stop that or slow that down. So I brought these two fine people on today to talk about the vaccine. Chad, what are some of the fears about taking the vaccine that you think people have? Well, first of all, let me ask you this. Are you taking the vaccine?
I am scheduled to receive it this week.
This week, okay.
Yes, I'm excited to receive it this week.
Yes. And there's 2 doses?
Yeah, the dose vaccine I'm getting is the Pfizer vaccine, and the first dose, if I take it this week, then I'll need the next dose about 21 days later.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we've talked prior to this and, jokingly about it. What are some of the fears people have surrounding this vaccine?
Well, I think they're very broad fears, some of which are, I think there's 2 categories I put the fears in. One is in something I call conspiracy type fears, that the government and pharma should not be trusted, that they have ulterior motives and would put us at harm's way, even if they had information that they knew they were putting us in harm's way. And then the second category of fear, I think, is maybe a little bit more rational, and that is that the vaccine is relatively new and that there are maybe complications and risks associated with the vaccine, that we haven't had enough time since the development of the vaccine to really see what those complications might be. So I think most of the fears that I hear articulated come in one of those two flavors.
Okay.
And then probably what's common, though, is the motivation behind those fears, whether it be more conspiracy versus something that, occurs late. Is I think the motivation behind the fear tends to be generally fear of the unknown. People, what you want to believe about something has a big impact on whether or not you magnify the fear or you minimize the fear, right? Anytime you have to do something that you're scared of, you probably, once you decide to do it, you talk yourself into, this is a small fear, and I know this is important and I'm going to do this thing. But when you're trying to make an excuse for why you're not going to do something, you magnify that fear. And I think right now, we see a lot of people who really don't want to believe that this is something that they should take, versus we see a lot of people who are excited to take it because they're more scared of the coronavirus. So I think understanding people's motivations, what they want to believe, is probably more important than really breaking down whether or not the fears are valid or not.
Okay. Desiree, touch on one of the first things Chad mentioned was the conspiracy theory. Let's go ahead and bring it out. One of the questions was the Tuskegee Experiment, something that popped to mind when we're getting this vaccine. Tell me your thoughts about that.
So first, I'll say that I'm also excited to get the vaccine. At our hospital, they're still working out the logistics and prioritizing who's going to get it. So to be honest, I might not get it. I'm not going to get it this week like Chad is, but it'll probably be another few weeks, maybe even a month. And so, yes, regarding the Tuskegee Experiment, a lot of people cling to that because it was definitely a wrong that the medical community got inflicted on African Americans. But the thing I'd say about that is that at the time, things were a lot different. Now, as soon as you want the answer to something, you can get on Google and look it up. But back then, people relied on word of mouth. They relied on just their neighbors telling them if something was okay. And it really set up a situation where these men that needed health care for free, and they also needed the meals that they promised, it set them up in a vulnerable situation. Also, because of that, a lot of things have been put into place to prevent it from happening again. A lot of regulations as far as informed consent. So our system is obviously not foolproof. Even in 2020, there's times when the medical community, there's systemic racism, there's other factors that make Black and brown people vulnerable. But I think that there's a lot more transparency. And so I think that, again, going back to what Chad said, people are scared to take the vaccine. And so sometimes when we're scared, we cling on to something that we can use as an excuse not to do it. But desperate times call for desperate measures. And right now we're in this pandemic, and there's not very many ways to get out of it unless most of us get this vaccine. So we have to weigh the pros and cons. And I think for, reading all of these studies, that this is the best way to get us out of it.
And, people take vaccines all the time, and my son and my daughter took like 6 vaccines. So I think if they were trying to get us, there's ways to get us for those people who think that they're trying to get us. If y'all understand what I'm putting down. So warp speed. Some people are concerned, and Chad, you mentioned this, how fast we've come up with the vaccine. And I know you mentioned when we talked prior that there were things that were going on way before this vaccine started. So one of you guys jump in and tell us about this, the approval process, the warp speed, to help ease people's minds about that.
Well, I think first thing people need to understand is that this technology, a mRNA vaccine, is not new. It wasn't that we had never done any science regarding using messenger RNA vaccines prior to COVID. Development of messenger RNA vaccines have been in the works for lots of viral infections, particularly other coronavirus or SARS type viruses. Really, essentially, the technology to develop a vaccine against a unique strand of mRNA in the virus.
Chad, I'm gonna stop you. I'm gonna stop you. You're using big words for my audience out here. Message mRNA. What does that mean briefly?
Well, RNA is a type of genetic code material that's used to make proteins. So anytime somebody has a virus, what they really have is they have some rogue genetic material, RNA and sometimes DNA, that's in their cells, and it's taking over their cells' mechanisms to make proteins. So instead of the cell making the proteins it usually makes, it makes the proteins that the virus wants it to make. So it makes sense if you wanted to find something that will attack the virus, but not attack the host that the virus lives in, you would find something that's unique to the virus, right? So something that's unique to the virus is its messenger RNA. It's genetic code that it uses to make those proteins that it needs to function versus the proteins that that cell would normally make. The messenger RNA vaccines, basically, in order to develop it, all we really needed scientifically was to sequence the genetic code of the virus. As soon as we had the genetic code of the virus, all of the messenger RNA strands, we needed to then look for a unique strand that had relatively stable, what I would call genetic chemistry, and develop an antibody or develop a target to that strand. And like I said, we've been doing this for years. So some people think this is warp speed, but this technology has existed for a long time. But then the reason why developing, sequencing the DNA or the RNA and then developing the vaccine, why that occurs so quickly is because the usual barriers that cause a vaccine to take a long time to develop, or really any therapy to take a long time to develop, really were leveled by essentially a couple of things. One is usually funding is limited, but there was so much motivation to develop this vaccine that funding was basically sent to any lab that had a reasonable chance of coming up with a viable vaccine was really able to get substantial funding. The size of the trials that had to be run huge, and that takes a lot of money.
So instead of people going out and fundraising, people were just, hey, look, here's money, go. So that time frame of like, hey, give us some money to work on this vaccine was cut, and money was just sent to everybody that could work on it. Yes.
And then the next thing that usually takes a while for approval is, let's face it, the FDA is a government organization. Government organizations are not usually well known for working in warp speed. There's usually a lot of bureaucracy. Things sit around on people's desks or sit around in their email queue before they approve it. Things wait for meetings that are on hold for reasons that aren't really necessarily important. But essentially for this, the FDA obviously was under a microscope to not let things sit at their station. So essentially between the unlimited funding and the lack of the usual bureaucratic slowdowns, we were able to develop this vaccine at a faster rate than most people would have anticipated. But the science was not done in a rush fashion. The science of it and really the studies that have been performed have been done very well. And frankly, we talked about there being making sure things are ethical, from the Tuskegee study, making sure things are ethical. This study and these studies have been under the brightest lights of transparency. So it'd be very difficult to pull something off when there's so many IRBs that looked at the study protocols and so many stakeholders involved that are looking at these data to make sure that they make sense.
IRB, again,
Sorry, Institutional Review Board.
okay.
So an IRB or an Institutional Review Board is basically a group of people that, and the reason why we have Institutional Review Boards is largely because of the Tuskegee study, which because there was not oversight, something happened that was unethical. So an Institutional Review Board basically makes sure that everything about the study is going to be ethical and appropriate. I'm a principal investigator on multiple studies that I do here. I'm on faculty at the medical school as well as being the trauma medical director. So every study I do, I have to first get approval from the Baylor Institutional Review Board before they let me do that study. And that is that's a group of people that have been brought together, and they are of note very much brought together because they are free of conflicts of interest. Meaning the Institutional Review Board is not made up of people who have a bunch of money in pharma, or they have government positions that would need this thing to be approved. They're people that are actually free to make decisions, and their status on the review board is not contingent on whether or not they say this is ethical or not ethical. And that's really a big difference from today than what we had 70 years ago, when those men were not given penicillin, even though penicillin was a proven therapy for the disease they had.
Desiree, you were going to say something?
I was going to say, so springing from that, so then there's different phases of studies. So in phase 1, they get a few people to figure out, is this even something feasible? What are the side effects? What dose do they have to give you? And then if they can get past that and be approved for phase 2, then there's more people. So now maybe there's hundreds to thousands of people. And then phase 3, then maybe there's tens of thousands of people. And so there were a lot of people that were clamoring to find a study. Before, if you had a study, you have to keep putting up posters and calling around and trying to find people. But there were people that were wanting to be in these studies, and that's not usually something that happens. And so I think they were able to more quickly get people to be in the study, which made it go by faster too. And then like Chad said, all of the money that was pouring in, there were celebrities trying to give money, the government was giving money, everyone, it was all hands on deck in order to get this vaccine approved. But if you look back at other things, people will say, well, why don't we have a vaccine for HIV? Why don't we have a vaccine for cancer? Well, actually, there are some vaccines that they use for cancer. And actually, they have been trying to find a vaccine for HIV. They found a vaccine for Ebola when that was around. So, some things are more difficult than others. But I think just because it is a pandemic, when's the last time we had a pandemic? Back when we had the Spanish flu. So we're in a different situation, and that called for us to take action. So warp speed in retrospect might not have been the best term. Usually that's a good thing. People want their Starbucks right now. They want their Amazon package from the drones to drop down right now. And but with this, it's your body. And so people are like, wait a minute, I don't know if I want my vaccine fast. But without the vaccine fast, COVID is going to keep spreading. So we had to do something.
Okay. So what I'm hearing, go ahead, Chad.
Well, I was just going to say that the thing about all of those people that volunteered for the study, I really think that we should consider those people heroes, because what they did was they took something that they did not know had proven benefit to help the entire world. I'm taking the vaccine next week, but I'm no hero because I have a bunch of data that tells me this is going to lower my risk. Like I'm very unlikely to get COVID virus, and then I'm very unlikely to get to make someone in my family sick. So I'm doing this really for me and my family, and I'm just blessed that because I'm a frontline healthcare worker, I get it so early. At the same time, it was a curse because I had to be exposed to the virus so much in the last 10 months because I'm a frontline healthcare worker. So, it's kind of ironic that, being somebody who works in ICU was such a terrible thing up until now. Now it's like my saving grace that I get access to this vaccine before others.
Chad, you mentioned an important thing. one of my good homeboys said, men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. And you said you have the data to prove that. So it's not just the three of us talking. There's actual data, numbers, and some of that we're going to share on the show today, and some of that we're going to leave for the audience to research. Don't, even though we're respectable people, please just don't listen to us. We're going to provide you the resources so you're knowledgeable and you feel comfortable about what we're talking about today. Another question, that someone had was the side effects of taking the vaccine. So I will say this, there's a side effect of not taking the vaccine. It's called death. Let's come on. It's not Sunday, but let's preach. There's a side effect of not taking the vaccine. But do you guys know of any side effects or have any information regarding the side effects of the vaccine?
So I'd like to say I'd recently seen something where there were 4 people that got this condition called Bell's palsy, where their face got weak on one side, which sounds very scary. And so I think the thing is that, yes, there's going to be side effects, but are they side effects that resolve or get better? Even Tylenol, we take that all the time. It can cause liver failure. Regarding supplements, there's different supplements that might thin your blood and you're already on a blood thinner, and that could make you have bleeding. So yes, there's going to be side effects. I know people are scared of that, but again, you have to weigh the pros and cons. Like you said, COVID could kill you. And a lot of people will say that's alarmist, like, oh, most people, they just get a flu-like something and they don't even know they have it. That's true, but that's not everyone, and you don't know which one of those people you're going to be. And so I think you always have to look at how many people had side effects and was it something that they could recover from. But again, if you were taking this vaccine for something simple, then yeah, maybe you'd want to wait and see. But because there's so many people in ICUs and dying, then you have to take the good with the bad.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely some side effects that have been noted with the vaccine, but they're standard. Mostly it's been headaches, which for some reason the headaches are a little worse in younger people. Some fevers and some what's called myalgias or muscle aches, which is really essentially very similar to the side effect risk profile for most vaccines that we administer. So this isn't really an unexpected profile of side effects. I think the side effects that people really are concerned about are some significant, substantial side effects that this causes cancer, that this can kill you 5 years from now, that this mutates and you turn into a COVID-19 vaccine zombie.
I'm not laughing, but I'm laughing.
Those are the side effects that I think people are concerned about. But as I said, this is not a new technology, and we really have very little evidence to support the fact that there will be a late complication profile that's very different from any other mRNA vaccine that has been developed. So I think those risks I cannot promise that they are zero, but at this time we have no reason to really believe that risk is significant. And then I think the thing you pointed out is very important, Marlon. You said that the side effect of not taking it, there's a risk, and I think that's ultimately the issue, right? I think we're having this. A lot of people are hearing about this vaccine and they're like, I'll pass because there may be things I don't know about the vaccine. But by passing, what you're saying is I'm accepting the risk of not taking the vaccine. And a lot of times it's the devil that you know is a lot scarier than the devil that you don't know, right? So people have been dealing with the fact that coronavirus is out there for 10 months. And if it hasn't hurt them yet, and it hasn't hurt someone that they love yet, they may feel like, well, I feel like I can be safe. Or maybe they got COVID-19 already and they're like, well, I already had it and I'm still here, so maybe there's no benefit for me. That also may be true, actually. We really don't know what the benefit of the vaccine is in people who actually had a confirmed diagnosis of COVID-19. But for those folks who are kind of saying, I don't know anything about this vaccine, they really have to weigh that against the risk of not taking the vaccine. And the risk of not taking the vaccine is a very real risk of contracting COVID-19 in the next year. And also the very real risk of maybe not getting sick from COVID-19, but being a vector to take COVID-19 to someone that you love and care about, who is actually vulnerable and does have a bad outcome. That's a real risk. And because that's a real risk, measuring that real risk against a theoretical risk, to me, makes the decision making of whether or not to take the vaccine very simple. I mean, like I said, I am excited to get it next week because I've evaluated the risks with the data I have, and it is really a very simple decision for me. I mean, how fast can I get this vaccine? That's really how I feel about it.
I wanted to add,
women lie, numbers don't lie.
I wanted to add that, sometimes people also say, they want some other people to try it, or they're actually going to get that opportunity because all the people in the trial took it. And that's, each trial had 30, 40,000 people. And then the healthcare workers are going to try it. So really, by the time that the non-healthcare, non-essential
the common folk, the people in the back.
Yeah,
I'll say it, you didn't say it, the people in the back.
It's going to have been vetted even more. So it gives you, I guess that's kind of a good thing, the way that we're prioritizing it. It gives people a little bit more time to kind of see for themselves. We're gonna take one for the team. So
I didn't ask you guys, but I'm telling you guys as my friends, we're gonna bring you back in maybe a month or two after you guys have had the vaccine, just to do a quick follow-up and let the people know how you feel and what's going on. Because there is a certain contingency of people that are like, man, let the neighbor get it. Let me see what's going on and see if he started growing an eye or, start twitching or something. So I'm going to try to bring you guys back for a quick 5 and say, hey, this is what's going on. They've had the vaccine. So more people can feel comfortable with it because like you said, Chad, I want to hug my mama. I want to hug my mom. I want to hug my dad. I want to spend, next year Thanksgiving, next year Christmas with them. And I think by doing my research, talking with you guys and just getting over that fear, there's that fear, that Tuskegee, that was the first thing that popped up. I am one of those people that said, the syphilis, Tuskegee, syphilis, I'm not taking it. They trying to get us. And Desiree, you mentioned that Dr. Fauci wanted to make sure that we knew there was a certain individual that was part of this vaccine. Do you want to talk about that?
So I hadn't heard of her either, so I'm glad that Dr. Fauci highlighted. Her name is Dr. Corbett, and she's amazing. She's only in her 30s, and she's head of the NIH team that was working on this mRNA vaccine. And so there was some controversy. People said, what difference does it make that she's Black? And you can make a point that, that doesn't matter. But I think that, again, it shows that we're in the room, that it's, not back like it was in the past where we were just being experimented on and others were the ones that were running the trials and making the decisions. We're in the room and, Dr. Wilson is treating patients. I'm treating patients. Dr. Corbett was involved. And so I think it's important for us to see that we're inside. We're not just the outsiders now. I think that was very important to point out.
So another question was the effectiveness of the vaccine. Chad, you had some numbers that you wanted to share.
Yeah, so just to be clear, what does the vaccine do? Does it cure? Can you get take the vaccine after you get a cough and hope that it'll cure your COVID-19? No, that's not the way a vaccine works. The way a vaccine works is it gives you immunity so that if you are exposed to the virus, you will fight it off and you will not get sick from it. You won't develop symptoms and it won't really be able to proliferate in your body. But you'd have to have taken it before you get exposed for it to have some effect. I've done the most research on the Pfizer vaccine, and the reason for that is because that's the one that my hospital just acquired and the one I'm going to take. And I'll say that the effect. Let me
stop you right there. I'm gonna stop you.
Sure.
Are you getting any checks from Pfizer?
No,
any sponsorship or anything?
Unfortunately, so every time I give a talk, I have to list all my financial disclosures, and I am sad to say I have no financial disclosures. I want some. If I had invested in Moderna about 10 months ago, I'd be like, I'll be like, I'll talk to y'all later. I gotta go figure out what kind of boat I want.
Right.
So for the Pfizer virus, who I, by the way, do not work for and don't get any honorarium from, I did the research because I'm going to get, my skin in the game, is that's the vaccine that I'm going to be able to take. I looked at it, and essentially the probability of getting COVID-19 after you've gotten the virus is incredibly low. Now, what they're saying is it's 95% effective, meaning that there's a 95% less chance of you getting COVID if you get the vaccine than if you did not get the vaccine. But that's a little hard to understand. And if it's okay, I'm going to share my screen to kind of show you what that sort of looks like. So I don't know. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is the summary, research summary from the New England Journal article for the Pfizer vaccine. This is the generic name of the vaccine here. And this is something good for anybody to take a look at if they're kind of curious about the science behind the trial that proved that it worked. But what I want to call your attention to is this figure right here. This is really the effect of the vaccine. This red line is what people who got the vaccine have done, and this blue line is what people have gotten the placebo, or they did not get the vaccine. This is basically like not taking the vaccine. This is what they have done. And what you see on the bottom x-axis here is time. These are days, and on the y-axis you see the cumulative incidence of COVID-19. So what you're seeing here is that if you didn't take the vaccine, your chance of getting COVID-19 is much, much higher. Okay, and if you did get the vaccine, your chance of getting COVID-19 is much, much lower. And probably even more importantly, if you really look at the data carefully, this data in this little inset box is looking at the very first few days. Really, your risk of getting COVID-19 was really only if you got it right after. If you got COVID-19 right after getting the vaccine, then you didn't have enough time to build up immunity and you could still get COVID-19. But if you got through 10 days or so without getting COVID-19 after after receiving the vaccine, essentially you have almost no risk. I know this curve looks like it's still moving up, but these aren't really cases of COVID-19. What these are is people are dropping out of the study. They couldn't find them, for whatever reason, they move or whatever, so they're not able to get information. But essentially, this is an incredibly effective vaccine. And for my African Americans who are curious about, was this studied in Black people, of the 43,000 people who were in this study, over 3,000 of them were Black. And here's the great news: none of the Black people that got the vaccine got COVID-19. So it's 100% effective in people that look like me. So once again, I am excited to get this vaccine.
Woo! Representation matters, but we'll have a wide variety of people that watch this episode.
Sure.
But I'm Black, so I want to know what it means for me, really.
I think he also made an important point. So the moment it goes into your skin, you're not immune, and even after it goes into your skin, we're gonna have to still socially distance and wear a mask for a little while. It's going to take a while. I mean, it's going to take a while for everyone that wants it to get the vaccine. So it's not like when you get the vaccine and you could just like go out and be in the club and be at the bar and take off your mask and go crazy with it. Sorry. So it's gonna be a little while. So I think that's the other thing that people are wanting to know. Like, if they get it, what does that mean? Is their life going to change immediately? And unfortunately, not right away. But if enough of us do it, then yeah, we'll get there.
If enough of us do it, we're doing spring break. We get Memorial Day back again. Chad's going to get that boat that we're going to jump on that boat, ride with Chad. Those are all the things that are going to happen. Guys, anything else that we want to talk about that's important, that you want to share, that's on your heart, to let the people know what's going on?
Well, I think one thing to address is the notion that the vaccine is made of messenger RNA and that's genetic material. And some people have said, well, can't that mutate? Can't that form something that it's not supposed to? And really, that's not a a big concern because it's a very short piece of messenger RNA. It really cannot then mutate into an entire organism or set of genetic blueprints to make a different virus or something different. It's really a very tiny piece. What you probably should be concerned about is the coronavirus, getting infected with coronavirus and having all of that genetic material, because now you have all of this rogue RNA, messenger RNA and other RNA in your system that could possibly mutate. I think that's a much scarier thing. I think I would be much more concerned about the 20-year complications of getting a florid COVID infection than I would be concerned about the 20-year complications of getting this vaccine.
Anything else?
I guess, I would like to get back to that comment I made earlier about what you want to believe. I think, for every person who has took the time to listen to this, they obviously are trying to learn, and they want to know what the right thing to do is. And I think the first thing you have to do is examine your own motivations and figure out what you want to believe. My observation is that if you want to believe in something, you actually don't even need that much convincing data to get you to do it. A perfectly good example is 20 years ago, Pfizer came out with another drug called Viagra. And this drug had some serious life-threatening complications if you took it. But the folks who wanted to take it were motivated to want to believe that they were not going to have the complications and they were going to enjoy the benefit.
Benefits.
They
Friends
wanted
with benefits.
Amen. They wanted to believe in it, right? They really wanted to believe in it. And, one of the things I've been discussing with people a lot lately is homeopathic medications, supplements that people can take. Once again, a lot of supplements don't have a lot of really good evidence to support them, but we believe in them for whatever reason. And whether this evidence is good or whether the evidence is bad, if you want to believe that it's helping you, that's a big part of your motivation. So I guess, my advice to people is to really step back and try to examine their own kind of fundamental motivations and beliefs. But I'll say this, the folks that I know who have lost someone dear to COVID-19, those folks are the ones who seem to be the most motivated to take this vaccine because they've already felt the pain and they know that risk is so, so real. And they're really willing to endure, even if they don't understand the science behind the vaccine, they're willing to endure some risk so that they don't have to lose somebody else.
That Chad, I think you made a great point. There are people that are dying, dead, and we want to get back to touching. We want to get back to touching in a non-sexual harassment way. If anybody's watching, don't be touching somebody you ain't supposed to touch. But we want to get back to doing the things that we're accustomed to. So do your research. Don't just believe us. Men lie, women lie, numbers don't lie. Do your research, and we're going to provide some places or some information that you can research, just like the article that Chad showed with us today. We'll do that, and we'll drop a couple other things that you can do your own research too. And last quick question: are you going to would you give it to your parents? Would you give the vaccine, or would you recommend your parents taking the vaccine?
Yeah, I would recommend my parents. My parents are both in their 70s. They're healthy, but I would recommend that they take it right away if they could get it. Obviously, it's not available to them because they're retired and they're able to stay at home by and large. I also am pretty confident I would have my children take it. I probably would not do it right this second, but I suspect by the time it's offered to my kids, I will be ready for them to receive it as well.
Desiree?
I would definitely have my dad take it, other older family members. There's some controversy about whether pregnant women should take it. You have to weigh the pros and cons. And then they approved it for ages 16 and above, I believe. There was controversy about that. So teenagers at some point will be able to take it. And then kids will probably be last. But at some point, we're all going to need to take it. But we're going to have to kind of stage it. But definitely, my parents, my dad and and any older people, I want them to take it.
Awesome. if you watch today's episode, you feel moved, share this with your friends. Share this with somebody that has questions. That's why I wanted to bring these two people that I trust, that I've known for over.
Don't say it.
I didn't. I've known them for a while. But the first people I thought to, like, hey, let me call these. Let me do my research. Let me call these people that I trust that can share the information with you guys. So thank you guys for coming out. But we still have a fun part of the episode that we're going to get into right now. The fun question of the day: what was your favorite beverage growing up, Desiree? What did you used to drink?
So the funny thing is that Chad had just posted this really weird video, but it was actually about my favorite drink, RC Cola. I don't know why. There's Pepsi, there's Dr. Pepper, there was New Coke, but that RC Cola and the 2-liter bottle, that did it for me.
RC Cola, okay.
Which I guess also shows my age.
Chad, what was your favorite drink growing up?
Man, Capri Sun.
Capri Sun, okay.
If you could get in there, you had to.
What flavor?
That's when I knew I could be a surgeon, when I figured out how to.
What flavor of Capri Sun?
Man, any flavor, man. Anything was better than water. When you had the Capri Sun and everybody else had water, you just be sitting there. Oh yeah, this is so good.
What about the little high C's in the same? They had the square box, the little high C's. We had those too. Growing up. Anybody like Tang?
No.
I used to drink it, but that wasn't my thing. No.
My neighbor had Tang growing up. We didn't. I was like, that's nasty.
It was supposedly healthy, but I'm not even sure if it was healthy.
See?
Supposedly, but
what you want to believe.
It's what you want to believe.
Right.
Hey guys, thank you for coming out. Remember to promote, support, and encourage your friends. And it's more fun when the homies have some. Merry Christmas.